The great arena of Valarax Prime stretched out like a massive bowl carved from black stone. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, their voices creating a noise that echoed off the high walls. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had skin colors that humans had never seen before. They came from every corner of the galaxy to watch the combat trials. Commander Zixara stood at the edge of the arena floor, her crimson skin marked with white scars from countless battles. She was 7 feet tall, with muscles that could crush steel. Her golden eyes scanned the crowd with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. 15 years of combat trials, and she had won them all. Today would be no different. Across from her, Ambassador Lisa Carter sat in the diplomatic section, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She was human, small by galactic standards, with brown hair pulled back in a simple style. Next to her sat Jake Morgan, her security guard. He wore a plain black uniform and stood at average human height. To the aliens watching, he looked weak and fragile. High Commander Thralox raised his massive arms to silence the crowd. He was built like a mountain, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed red in the arena lights. His voice boomed across the space without any need for technology. Today, we witness another species seeking to join the Galactic Council. The humans of Earth have come to prove their worth. As tradition demands, they must face our greatest warrior in combat. The crowd erupted in laughter. Humans were new to the galaxy, discovered only months ago on their small blue planet. Their world had light gravity compared to most civilized planets. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They looked soft and breakable. Zixara smiled as she looked at the human section. She had studied their files. They came from a planet they called Earth, a quiet world in an unremarkable system. Their strongest warriors could barely lift what Kratheon children played with. Their fastest runners were slower than elderly Kratheons. Everything about them screamed weakness. "I volunteer to test their champion," Zixara called out, her voice carrying easily across the arena. "Let us see what these humans can offer." Ambassador Carter leaned close to Jake. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." Jake shook his head slowly. "No, we can't. They won't respect us until we prove ourselves. It's how their culture works. But you saw the data. She's stronger, faster, more experienced in their style of combat." "I know," Jake said quietly. His face remained calm, but something in his eyes was hard to read. "But we came here to show them who we are." "Let me do that." Lisa Carter wanted to argue more, but she knew he was right. The Galactic Council had rejected every diplomatic approach. They did not care about technology or trade agreements. They only respected strength, and they measured strength through combat. Jake stood and walked down the steps toward the arena floor. Other humans in the diplomatic section watched with worried faces. Ryan Price, another security officer, called out, "Just remember your training." Jake nodded without looking back. The crowd's laughter grew louder as Jake stepped onto the black stone floor. He looked tiny compared to Zixara. She towered over him, her shadow falling across his body like a dark promise. "This is your champion?" Zixara asked, her voice full of amusement. "The humans send a guard to face a warrior?" "I'm what they have," Jake replied simply. High Commander Thralox spoke again. "The trial will consist of 4 challenges: strength, speed, weapons, skill, and finally, endurance combat. The human may yield at any time. Losing brings no shame, only the truth of capability." Jake said nothing. He simply waited. The first challenge began. Large weights were brought out, massive blocks of metal that required true power to lift. Zixara approached the first one and lifted it over her head with ease. The crowd cheered. She set it down and stepped back, gesturing for Jake to try. Jake gripped the weight and pulled. His muscles strained. His face tightened with effort, but the weight barely moved. He tried again, managing to lift it to his waist before his arms shook and he had to drop it. The metal hit the ground with a heavy sound that seemed to echo his failure. The crowd roared with laughter. Several aliens made gestures that clearly meant weakness and mockery. Zixara felt a small disappointment. She had hoped for more of a challenge. "Perhaps the next test will be better for you," she said, not unkindly. In her culture, there was no dishonor in being weak. It was simply a fact to be acknowledged. The speed trials came next. They had to run across the arena floor, climb a wall, and return. Zixara completed it in seconds. Moving so fast, she was almost a blur. Jake ran the course too, but his time was more than twice as long. He moved steadily, not slowly exactly, but without the explosive power that the aliens valued. More laughter from the crowd. Some aliens stood to leave, clearly bored by the obvious outcome. The weapons test was third. They were given bladed staffs, traditional weapons used across many cultures. Zixara spun hers with practiced skill. Her movements sharp and precise. She had trained with these weapons since childhood. Jake held his staff carefully, testing its weight and balance. When they began to spar, Zixara pressed her advantage immediately. She struck fast and hard, driving Jake backward across the arena floor. He blocked some attacks and dodged others, but she scored 3 touches to his body within the first minute. The rules said first to 5 touches won. Jake's defense improved slightly, but it did not matter. Zixara landed her 4th touch, then her 5th. The weapons test was over. Ambassador Carter put her face in her hands. Around her, the other humans sat in heavy silence. They had hoped for better, but the results spoke clearly. Humans were simply outmatched by galactic standards. Zixara stepped back from Jake, lowering her weapon. She felt that strange unease again, the one she had noticed when he first entered. He had lost every challenge, but his breathing was steady. His eyes were calm. He did not look afraid or ashamed. He looked like someone waiting. "You have fought well enough," she said. "There is no shame in yielding now. Your species is young. Perhaps in time you will grow stronger." Jake tilted his head slightly. "There's still one more challenge." "The endurance combat," Zixara agreed. "But it will change nothing. You cannot defeat me." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But I'd like to finish what we started." High Commander Thralox looked at Ambassador Carter. "Does your champion truly wish to continue? The final challenge is harsh. Many warriors have been injured in endurance combat." Lisa Carter stood. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "If Jake Morgan wishes to continue, then he has Earth's support." The crowd murmured with surprise. They had expected the humans to quit. At least this small species had some pride, even if they lacked strength. Thralox nodded. "Very well. The final challenge will begin after a short rest period. Both fighters will enter the survival arena. There are no rules, no time limits. The fight continues until one fighter yields or falls unconscious. Do you both understand?" Zixara nodded immediately. Jake stood quiet for a moment, then nodded once. As they moved to opposite sides of the arena for the rest period, Zixara watched Jake carefully. He rolled his shoulders and stretched his arms. His movements were efficient, without wasted energy. She had faced hundreds of opponents, and she had learned to read them. Most revealed their fear or anger or desperation through their body language. Jake revealed nothing. For the first time in many years, Zixara felt something she had almost forgotten. Not fear exactly, but uncertainty. She looked at this small human who had lost every test, and she saw something in his eyes that did not match his performance. Something patient and dark and very, very old. She shook her head to clear such strange thoughts. He was just another opponent, another species to measure and defeat. The trial would end soon, and the humans would leave with their dignity barely intact. But as the rest period ended and they both walked toward the center of the arena, Zixara could not shake the feeling that she was missing something important, something that would change everything. The survival arena was different from the main floor. Technicians activated the environmental controls, and the space began to transform. Walls rose from the ground, creating obstacles and barriers. Lights shifted to simulate different conditions. The temperature dropped suddenly, and frost began forming on the black stone. Jake and Zixara entered from opposite sides. The crowd had grown quiet now, more interested than before. Even if the human had lost every previous test, endurance combat was always entertaining. Sometimes it lasted for hours, sometimes it ended in seconds. High Commander Thralox's voice echoed through the space. Begin. The temperature in the arena shifted again, this time climbing rapidly. Within seconds, the frost melted, and the air became hot enough to shimmer. This was the first test of the endurance challenge. The environment would cycle through extremes, pushing both fighters to their limits while they tried to defeat each other. Zixara moved first. She closed the distance between them quickly, her long legs eating up the space. Her people were built for combat, bred through generations of warfare. Heat did not bother her, neither did cold. She had fought in the vacuum of space wearing minimal protection. Jake shifted his stance, watching her approach. He did not run or charge forward. He simply waited, his body balanced and ready. Zixara threw her first strike, a powerful punch aimed at Jake's chest. He moved at the last second, turning so the blow glanced off his shoulder instead of hitting center mass. She followed with a kick. He blocked it with his forearm, absorbing the impact. The force should have broken his arm. Zixara knew how hard she had kicked. But Jake simply stepped back, rolling his shoulder where she had hit him. No cry of pain. No grimace. Just calm assessment. She pressed forward with a combination of strikes. Jake blocked most of them, took a few hits to non-critical areas, and gave ground steadily. He was not fighting back aggressively. He seemed to be studying her, learning her patterns. "You are too defensive," Zixara said, circling him. "This will not save you." Jake said nothing. His eyes tracked her movements with complete focus. The temperature dropped again, plummeting so fast that their breath became visible clouds. Ice formed on the walls. The cold was enough to slow most species, making their muscles stiff and their reactions sluggish. Zixara adjusted easily. Her body was efficient, generating heat through movement and keeping her core temperature stable. She glanced at Jake, expecting to see him struggling. He stood in the freezing air like it was nothing. No shivering. No signs of distress. If anything, he looked more alert. Ambassador Carter watched from her seat with growing confusion. She knew Jake's file. He was former military, yes, but his medical records showed normal human tolerances. The cold in that arena was well below freezing. He should be struggling. Ryan Price leaned forward in his seat. "He's not even breathing hard," he muttered to the human sitting next to him. "Maybe the adrenaline," the other replied, but he did not sound convinced. Back in the arena, Zixara increased her aggression. She had won hundreds of fights by overwhelming her opponents early. Power and speed, applied relentlessly until they broke. She launched a series of attacks designed to end the fight quickly. Jake took several hits. A punch to his ribs that should have cracked bone, a kick to his thigh that should have dropped him, an elbow to his jaw that should have knocked him unconscious. He absorbed them all. He staggered, yes. He bled from a cut above his eye. Yes. But he did not fall. And more importantly, his eyes never lost focus. Zixara stepped back, breathing slightly harder now. She had been fighting for 10 minutes at full intensity. The human should be finished. But he stood there, wiping blood from his face with a calm expression. "What are you?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Human," Jake replied simply. The environment shifted again. The oxygen level dropped to what most species would consider dangerously low. Several aliens in the crowd needed breathing assistance just to watch. High Commander Thralox had to engage his personal atmosphere shield. Zixara felt the change immediately. Her breathing deepened, her body working harder to pull oxygen from the thin air. It was manageable, but it added another layer of difficulty. Jake breathed steadily, seemingly unaffected. Zixara's unease grew stronger. Something was wrong. This human should not be adapting so well to conditions that challenged even her. She thought back to the briefing she had read about Earth, a small planet, light gravity, nothing remarkable. But she realized now that she had not read carefully enough. She had assumed that light gravity meant weak inhabitants. She had not considered what else might be different about the human world. The fight continued. An hour passed. Then 2. The arena cycled through different challenges. High gravity that pressed down on them like a weight. Poisonous gases that would kill most species in minutes. Extreme radiation that made the very air glow. Zixara handled each change through a combination of her natural resilience and her training. But she was starting to tire. Her strikes lost some of their snap. Her movements were not quite as sharp. Jake looked exactly the same as when the fight began. The crowd had gone completely silent now. They were witnessing something they did not understand. The human who had failed every test, who looked weak and fragile, was somehow outlasting their greatest warrior in conditions that would kill most of the species watching. Ambassador Carter felt hope stirring in her chest for the first time. She did not know how Jake was doing this, but he was showing the galaxy that humans were more than they appeared. Zixara attacked again, but this time with less confidence. She threw a punch. Jake blocked it and countered for the first time, a quick jab to her midsection. The hit was precise, landing exactly on a nerve cluster. Zixara felt her left arm go slightly numb. That should not have been possible. Different species had different anatomies. Finding nerve clusters in an unfamiliar body should take study and practice. Jake had no time to study her, yet he had struck with perfect accuracy. She backed away, reassessing. "You have been holding back." Jake did not deny it. "I'm trying to understand how you fight. How your people fight. It's important." "Important?" Zixara felt anger mixing with her confusion. "This is not a learning exercise. This is combat. For you, maybe," Jake said. "For me, this is first contact. Real first contact. Not just diplomacy. I need to know what we're dealing with." The audacity of his words struck her. He was treating this trial, this test of human worthiness, as his opportunity to study them, as if they were the ones being evaluated. Zixara roared and launched her most powerful attack. This was a technique she had learned from the ancient war masters. A strike that combined speed, strength, and timing into something almost unstoppable. She had used it to defeat champions from a dozen species. Jake moved faster than he had yet shown. He did not block the strike. He redirected it, using Zixara's momentum against her. She stumbled past him, off balance for the first time in the entire fight. Before she could recover, Jake touched her back lightly, between her shoulder blades. It was not a strike, just a touch. But Zixara understood the message. He could have hit her there, could have done serious damage. He chose not to. She spun to face him, breathing hard now. 3 hours had passed since the fight began. 3 hours of extreme conditions, constant combat, and maximum effort. She was exhausted in a way she had not experienced since her early training days. Jake looked tired too, finally. Sweat covered his face and his uniform was torn in several places. But his stance was still solid. His breathing, while faster, was controlled and steady. "Why?" Zixara asked. "Why do you hold back? If you can fight better, then fight better. Defeat me." Jake shook his head slowly. "I don't need to defeat you. I need to show you that we can survive what you throw at us. There's a difference." High Commander Thralox watched from his seat with growing interest. He had overseen thousands of trials. He knew combat in all its forms. What he was seeing now was something he had never witnessed before, a fighter who was clearly capable of more, deliberately restraining himself, not from fear or weakness, but from purpose. Zixara felt something crack inside her, some assumption she had held her entire life. Strength was simple in her world. The powerful dominated the weak. Winners took what they wanted. Combat decided everything. But this human was showing her something different. A kind of strength that came from restraint. A victory that did not require defeating your opponent. She did not understand it, but she could not deny what she was seeing. The environment shifted again, ramping up to the most extreme settings. Temperature swings that went from boiling to freezing in seconds. Gravity fluctuations that made movement difficult, air so thin that breathing required deliberate effort. Zara pushed through it, using the last of her considerable reserves. She had to end this. She could not let a human outlast her. Her pride, her reputation, everything she had built, depended on winning. She threw everything into a final series of attacks. Every technique she knew, every skill she had mastered over 15 years of combat. She moved like a storm. Strikes coming from every angle, Jake defended against them all. His movements were economical, wasting no energy. Where Zara attacked with power, he responded with precision. Where she used speed, he used timing. And then, as her final strike came down, Jake caught her wrist. His grip was not stronger than hers, but it was placed perfectly, leveraging her own force against her. He stepped inside her guard and swept her legs out from under her. She fell hard onto the arena floor. The impact driving the air from her lungs. Jake did not follow up. He stepped back, releasing her wrist, and waited for her to rise. Zara lay there for a moment, staring up at the arena ceiling. She had lost. For the first time in 15 years, someone had put her on the ground, and they had done it without even trying their hardest. Zara pushed herself up slowly from the arena floor. Every muscle in her body ached. She had fought for 3 hours in conditions that would have killed most beings in the galaxy, and now she lay defeated at the feet of a human. The crowd remained silent. No one seemed to know how to react. They had come to watch humans be humbled. Instead, they were watching their greatest warrior struggle against what they had called a weak species. Jake extended his hand to help Zara up. She stared at it for a moment. This gesture of assistance from someone who had just beaten her. In Krathion culture, you did not help a fallen opponent. You stood over them in victory. She took his hand anyway. His grip was firm but not crushing. He pulled her to her feet with steady strength. "You are not what we were told," Zara said, her voice low enough that only Jake could hear. "What were you told?" Jake asked. "That humans come from a soft world. That you have no natural weapons, no armor, no abilities worth noting. That your entire species is weak by galactic standards." Jake nodded slowly. "That's what a lot of species seem to think. The preliminary reports focused on our technology level and social structures. I guess nobody looked closely at Earth itself." High Commander Thralox's voice interrupted them. "The trial is not finished. Commander Zara has fallen but has not yielded. If she can continue, the combat continues." Zara straightened, ignoring the pain in her legs and back. She would not yield. She could not yield. Not yet. She needed to understand what she was facing. "I can continue," she called out. Jake looked at her with what might have been concern. "You don't have to. You've already proven you're a great fighter." "This is not about proving myself," Zara replied. "This is about understanding what you are, what your species is." The environmental controls activated again. This time the arena floor began to shift, creating uneven terrain with obstacles and barriers. The temperature stayed moderate, but the oxygen dropped even lower. Several more aliens in the crowd had to leave, unable to breathe even with assistance. Zara felt the thin air burning in her lungs. She was built for this, trained for this, but she was already exhausted. Every breath was work. Every movement required conscious effort. Jake breathed deeply but steadily. His chest rose and fell in a rhythm that seemed almost relaxed. "How?" Zara demanded. "How are you doing this?" Jake glanced at the environmental readouts displayed for the crowd. "The oxygen level right now is about 12%. That's lower than Earth's atmosphere, but not by as much as you'd think." "Earth's atmosphere is that rich in oxygen?" Zara felt shock cut through her exhaustion. Most habitable worlds had oxygen levels between 8 and 10%. Anything higher was considered dangerous, potentially toxic. "About 21% at sea level," Jake confirmed. "We evolved breathing air that would poison a lot of species." Zara's mind raced through the implications. An atmosphere that rich in oxygen would support faster metabolism, quicker healing, greater endurance. It would also mean more dangerous fires, more aggressive evolution, harsher environmental pressures. What else? She asked. Jake hesitated, then seemed to decide something. Earth's gravity is 1.0 standard, which I know doesn't sound like much more than most worlds. But we also have extreme temperature variations, regular natural disasters, thousands of species of predators and parasites, and diseases that have killed millions of us throughout history. He started walking as he spoke, moving around the arena with ease despite the difficult conditions. Zixara followed, conserving her energy. Our world never gave us a moment of safety, Jake continued. Every generation of humans had to survive things that would wipe out most species. We adapted, or we died, and the ones who survived passed on genes for endurance, adaptability, and persistence. You are Deathworlders, Zixara breathed. The term was known across the galaxy. It referred to species from planets with extremely hostile conditions, planets that produced inhabitants who were dangerous beyond their apparent capabilities. We prefer to think of ourselves as survivors, Jake said quietly. Ryan Price's voice suddenly cut through the arena from the human section. Jake, stop explaining and just finish this. Jake glanced up at his fellow security officer. We're having a conversation, Ryan. This is a combat trial, not a cultural exchange. Ryan called back. Ambassador Carter touched Ryan's arm. Let him handle it his way. Zixara looked between Jake and his people. They clearly wanted him to win decisively, to prove human superiority. But Jake was not interested in domination. He was interested in understanding. It was so alien to her way of thinking that she almost could not process it. You could have ended this fight an hour ago, Zixara said. It was not a question. Probably, Jake admitted. But what would that have accomplished? I'd have won. But you and everyone watching would still think humans were just another aggressive species. Another group trying to climb the galactic hierarchy through violence. And instead, I'm showing you that we can match you in combat while choosing not to dominate. We're strong enough to fight, but we prefer to talk. The arena environment shifted again. The gravity increased to twice standard, pressing down on both fighters. Zixara's legs almost buckled under the sudden weight. She braced herself against a barrier, struggling to stay upright. Jake adjusted his stance smoothly. High gravity, low gravity. It did not seem to matter to him. Earth's gravity is higher than standard, Zixara guessed. A bit, Jake acknowledged. We're built to carry our own weight under constant pressure. Zixara pushed away from the barrier, forcing herself to move despite the crushing force. She attacked again, but her movements were slow, telegraphed. Jake avoided her strikes without difficulty. She tried a grapple instead, using her size advantage to lock Jake in a hold that should have immobilized him. For a moment, she thought she had him, but then Jake shifted his weight, found leverage she did not know existed, and slipped free. He countered with a hold of his own, one that controlled Zixara without hurting her. She struggled against it, but the technique was perfect. Her strength meant nothing when he had positioned his body to neutralize it. Where did you learn this? She gasped. Basic training, Jake replied. Every human soldier learns how to fight opponents who are bigger and stronger. It's a fundamental skill. Every soldier? Zixara felt ice run through her veins despite the physical exertion. You are teaching this to all your warriors? All our soldiers, yes. And there are civilian versions too. Self-defense training is common in human culture. Zixara realized with creeping horror that Jake was not special. He was not an exceptional human warrior. He was average. Maybe even below average for human military personnel. And he was defeating her. Jake released the hold and stepped back again. I think we've both learned what we needed to learn. I have learned that humans are far more dangerous than anyone realized. Zixara said bluntly. We can be dangerous, Jake agreed. But danger and violence are not the same thing. That's what I'm trying to show you. High Commander Thralox watched the exchange with deep interest. He was old enough to remember first contact with several species. He had seen how misunderstandings led to conflict. He had also seen how proper understanding led to cooperation. What the human was doing was risky but potentially brilliant. Instead of simply defeating Zixara and confirming alien fears about human violence, he was teaching her about human nature, about restraint and choice. The question was whether it would work. Zixara stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard, her body pushed beyond what she thought were her limits. She looked at Jake, this unremarkable human who had revealed depths she had not imagined. "I want to understand," she said finally. "Not just about your abilities, but about how you think. Your people survived a death world, yet you come to us seeking peace. Why?" Jake smiled. The first real smile she had seen from him. "Because surviving a death world taught us something important. It's not enough to be strong. You have to be smart. You have to cooperate. Humans spent most of our history fighting each other, tribe against tribe, nation against nation. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times." He gestured to the arena around them. "We learned that strength is not just about winning fights. It's about choosing which fights to have. It's about knowing when to extend a hand instead of making a fist." "Pretty words," Zixara said. "But this is still a combat trial. Philosophy does not win battles." "No," Jake agreed. "But it determines what you do after you win." The gravity decreased back to normal levels, giving Zixara some relief. She was running on fumes now, pure willpower keeping her on her feet. She had never fought this long, never been pushed this far. Jake looked tired too, finally showing signs of real fatigue. But where Zixara was nearing collapse, Jake looked like someone who could keep going if necessary. "How much longer can you fight?" Zixara asked. Jake considered the question. "Hours more, if I have to. Maybe longer. Human persistence is one of our key adaptations." "Persistence." Zixara repeated the word. It seemed like such a simple concept, but she was beginning to understand its implications. A species that could simply outlast their opponents, that could keep moving when others fell. That was truly dangerous. She made her decision. "I want to see it. Your true power. No more holding back. No more lessons. Show me what you can really do." Jake's expression grew serious. "I don't think that's a good idea." "I am not asking," Zixara said firmly. "I am a warrior of the Kratheon Empire. I have earned the right to face you at your full capability. Honor demands it." The crowd leaned forward in their seats. Even the aliens who had left came back, unwilling to miss what might happen next. Jake looked up at Ambassador Carter. She nodded slowly, giving permission. "All right," Jake said quietly. "But understand something first. What you're asking for is not just about strength or skill. You're asking to see what humans become when we stop holding back. When we remember that we're predators from a world that tried to kill us every single day." Zixara felt that unease return, stronger now. But she did not back down. "Show me." Jake's entire demeanor changed. The careful control dropped away. His stance shifted into something lower, more fluid. His eyes, which had been warm and patient, became cold and focused. For the first time since entering the arena, he looked like what he truly was, an apex predator from a death world, evolved to hunt, to survive, and to win. The moment Jake's demeanor changed, Zixara knew she had made a terrible mistake. She had fought hundreds of opponents. She knew how to read body language, how to spot tells, how to predict attacks. But what she saw now in Jake's posture was something completely different. He did not stand like someone preparing to fight. He stood like something that had already decided the fight was over. Zixara attacked first, using the last of her strength to launch a strike she hoped would catch him off guard. Her fist cut through the air, faster than most beings could track. Jake moved faster. He was not where her fist landed. He had shifted to the side with minimal movement, just enough to let her attack pass by harmlessly. Before she could recover, he struck her leg with a precise kick, not hard, but perfectly placed on a nerve cluster. Her right leg went numb instantly. She stumbled, caught herself, and threw a desperate combination of strikes. Jake evaded them all. Not with flashy movements or acrobatics, with simple, efficient adjustments of position. He wasted no energy, made no unnecessary motions. Then he countered. His strikes came in rapid succession, each one landing on a specific point of her body. A tap to her shoulder that made her arm go weak. A palm strike to her ribs that disrupted her breathing. A quick jab to her neck that made her vision blur for a second. None of the hits were powerful enough to cause real damage, but each one struck a vital point, targeting her nervous system with surgical precision. It was like being attacked by someone who knew her body better than she did. Zixara tried to create distance, but Jake stayed with her. He moved like water, flowing around her defenses, always in the perfect position. She could not hit him. She could barely track him. The crowd watched in absolute silence. What they were seeing should not be possible. A human, smaller and lighter than their champion, was dominating the fight with pure technical skill. Ambassador Carter gripped the armrest of her seat. She had known Jake was good. His file said he was former Special Forces, highly trained, exceptionally capable. But this was beyond anything she had imagined. Ryan Price leaned back with a satisfied expression. There we go. That's what I was waiting for. On the arena floor, Zixara fell to one knee. Her body was not responding correctly. Jake had struck so many nerve points that her coordination was failing. She tried to stand, but her legs would not support her properly. Jake stopped attacking and took several steps back. He stood there, breathing hard but controlled, watching her struggle. Do you understand now? He asked quietly. Zixara forced herself to her feet through pure determination. I understand that you are more skilled than I anticipated. But skill is not the same as true power. You're right, Jake agreed. Let me show you the difference. He moved again, and this time Zixara saw something that made her freeze. Jake was not just fast, he was predator fast. The kind of speed that came from millions of years of evolution, of ancestors who had to catch prey or starve, who had to escape threats or die. He closed the distance between them in a heartbeat. Zixara threw a punch with all her remaining strength. Jake caught her fist in midair. His grip was not crushing, but it was immovable. She pulled, twisted, tried every technique she knew to break free. Nothing worked. Jake held her fist like it was locked in stone. Then he demonstrated human strength. He pushed forward, not violently, but with steady, relentless pressure. Zixara resisted with everything she had. Her muscles, built through a lifetime of training on a high-gravity world, strained to hold her ground. Jake pushed her backward anyway. Step by step, across the arena floor. She tried to set her stance, to anchor herself, but it did not matter. He was not stronger than her in raw terms, but he knew exactly how to apply his strength for maximum effect. When her back hit the arena wall, Jake released her fist and placed both hands on her shoulders. Not a strike, not a throw, just pressure, pinning her against the wall without hurting her. Human strength is not just about muscles, Jake said, his face close to hers. It's about leverage, technique, and understanding anatomy. We evolved as persistence hunters. We did not run faster than our prey. We ran longer. We did not fight stronger than our predators. We fought smarter. Zixara tried to break free, but Jake's positioning was perfect. Every time she shifted, he adjusted to neutralize her movement. It was like fighting gravity itself. For 2 million years, Jake continued, humans hunted animals bigger and stronger than us. We learned to bring down creatures that could kill us with a single blow. We did it by working together, by being patient, and by never, ever giving up. He stepped back suddenly, releasing her. Zixara immediately attacked, using every last bit of her training and experience. She threw a combination that had defeated the champion of the Vortan Empire. Jake blocked the first strike, redirected the second, and caught her off balance on the third. He swept her legs out from under her, controlled her fall so she landed without injury, and had her in a submission hold before she fully realized what had happened. The hold was not painful, but it was absolute. Zixara's arm was locked at an angle where she could not apply strength without breaking her own joint. Her neck was controlled so she could not gain leverage with her body. She was completely helpless. "This is judo," Jake explained calmly. "A Japanese martial art. Humans developed thousands of fighting systems over our history. We have styles focused on striking, grappling, weapons, meditation, and philosophy. Some are centuries old. Some are new. All of them are designed to help humans defeat opponents who are bigger, stronger, or better armed than we are." Zara struggled against the hold, but carefully, not wanting to injure herself. "You have been toying with me. This entire fight, everything before this. I was trying to make a point without humiliating you," Jake said. "I was trying to show that humans can be strong without being cruel. That we can win without destroying." "Why?" Zara's voice was raw with emotion. "Why would you show mercy to someone who came here to prove you were weak?" Jake's grip loosened slightly, enough that the hold was no longer painful at all, but he did not release her completely. "Because that's who we are. Humans learned a long time ago that the strongest person in the room is not the one who can hurt the most people. It's the one who chooses not to." The crowd erupted into chaos. Aliens were shouting, arguing, demanding explanations. Some were calling for the trial to be voided, claiming the humans had sent a superhuman or used enhancements. Others were insisting that this changed everything about humanity's application to the Galactic Council. High Commander Thralox raised his arms for silence. It took several minutes for the crowd to settle. "Medical scan the human," he ordered. "I want to verify that he is natural, unenhanced, and representative of his species." Medical technicians rushed onto the arena floor. Jake released Zara completely and stood up, raising his arms to allow the scanning. Zara remained on the ground for a moment, gathering her strength and her composure. The lead medical technician, an insect-like being with multiple eyes, examined the results on a portable screen. Her confusion was obvious. "High Commander," she said, her voice clicking with uncertainty. "The human is completely natural. No enhancements. No modifications. No performance drugs. His genetic structure is baseline human. His physical condition is consistent with regular military training. Nothing exceptional by human standards." "Nothing exceptional," Zara repeated, pushing herself to her feet. "This is a normal human soldier?" "According to our database on human biology, yes," the medical technician confirmed. "His muscle density, bone strength, cardiovascular capacity, and neural processing are all within standard human parameters. If anything, he is slightly below peak human physical condition." The implication sent waves of shock through the crowd. This human, who had defeated their greatest warrior with ease, was not even at the top of his species' capabilities. Ambassador Carter stood up in the diplomatic section. Her voice carried clearly across the suddenly quiet arena. "Members of the Galactic Council, what you have witnessed today is not an exceptional human. Jake Morgan is a good soldier, well-trained, experienced. But he is not our strongest, not our fastest, not our most skilled fighter." She paused, letting that sink in. "Earth is a world that has produced beings capable of this level of performance as a baseline. Every human carries the genetic legacy of survival on a planet that tried to kill us in 1,000 different ways. We did not evolve claws because we learned to make tools. We did not evolve armor because we learned to make clothing. We did not evolve venom because we learned to make medicine." Lisa Carter looked around at the assembled aliens. "We evolved intelligence, endurance, and adaptability. We evolved the ability to thrive in any environment, to overcome any obstacle, to persist when other species would give up. And most importantly, we evolved the wisdom to know that survival is not about being the strongest. It's about cooperation, compassion, and choosing peace whenever possible." Zara listened to the ambassador's words and felt something shift inside her. She had spent her entire life believing that strength was the only thing that mattered. The strongest ruled. The weak served. It was the natural order. But Jake had shown her a different kind of strength. The strength to hold back. The strength to teach instead of dominate. The strength to win without destroying your opponent's dignity. She walked over to where Jake stood, surrounded by medical technicians and their scanning equipment. He looked tired now, truly exhausted. The facade of calm control had cracked slightly, showing the effort it had taken to maintain it. "You could have broken me," Zixara said. "At any point in this fight, you could have caused serious injury. Why didn't you?" Jake looked at her with those calm eyes. "Because I'm not here to break anyone. I'm here to show that humans can be partners, not threats. We've seen what happens when species first meet with violence. Earth's history is full of those mistakes. We're trying to do better." Zixara held out her hand in the human gesture of respect she had seen Jake use. He took it, and they shook. "You have taught me more in one fight than I learned in 15 years of victory," she said quietly. "I came here believing I knew what strength was. You showed me I was wrong." Jake smiled. "You're an amazing fighter, Commander. And you had the courage to keep learning even when you were losing. That's real strength." High Commander Thralox's voice boomed across the arena. "The trial is concluded. The human has demonstrated sufficient capability for Earth to be considered for council membership. All diplomatic representatives will convene in 1 hour to discuss the implications of what we have witnessed today." As medical teams helped both fighters out of the arena, Zixara looked back at the space where they had fought for hours. She had entered this arena as an undefeated champion. She left as someone who finally understood what true power meant. The medical bay was quiet compared to the chaos of the arena. Jake sat on an examination table while technicians finished their scans. His uniform was torn in several places, and bruises were already forming on his arms and ribs where Zixara's strikes had landed. Zixara occupied the table across from him, receiving similar treatment. Her crimson skin showed darker patches where she had taken damage, and one of her eyes was swollen. The medical technicians worked efficiently, applying treatments that would speed healing for both fighters. "You let me hit you," Zixara said, breaking the silence. "Several times. You could have avoided those strikes." Jake nodded. "I needed you to feel like you were landing attacks. If I had just dodged everything from the start, you would have thought I was playing with you. This way, you knew you were giving your best effort, and my best effort was not enough." There was no bitterness in her voice, just statement of fact. "Your best effort was impressive," Jake countered. "You fought for hours in extreme conditions. Most beings would have collapsed long before you did." A medical technician approached them with results displayed on a data pad. "Both fighters are cleared. Minor injuries consistent with extended combat. Nothing that will not heal naturally within a standard galactic week." Ambassador Carter entered the medical bay with Ryan Price following behind her. She looked at Jake with an expression that mixed relief and exasperation. That was either brilliant or completely reckless. "I have not decided which yet." "It worked, didn't it?" Jake asked. "We don't know yet," Lisa replied. "The council is in emergency session. Some delegates are calling for immediate membership for Earth. Others are terrified and want us quarantined. There's even talk of classifying humans as a restricted species." "Restricted?" Zixara looked up sharply. "They cannot do that. The human fought honorably. He proved his people's worth. He proved that humans are far more dangerous than anyone expected," Lisa said. "Some council members are worried about what happens when more humans leave Earth. What happens when human soldiers, human diplomats, human colonists spread across the galaxy?" Ryan Price crossed his arms. "Let them worry. We passed their trial. We proved we belong here." "Belonging and being accepted are not the same thing," Zixara said quietly. She stood up from the examination table, moving carefully. "I will speak to the council. They need to understand what I learned today." She looked at Jake. "But first, I need to understand more. Tell me about your world. Tell me how humans survived long enough to reach the stars. Jake considered how to explain Earth's history to someone from a completely different background. Earth is old. Life on our planet evolved for billions of years before humans appeared. By the time we showed up, the world was already full of things that wanted to eat us." He gestured to one of the medical displays, showing a basic human anatomy. We started out as prey animals, small, weak, without natural weapons. We should have gone extinct. But we had two advantages. We could walk upright, freeing our hands to use tools, and we had brains that could solve problems. Zixara listened intently, her warrior's focus now directed at learning rather than fighting. Humans survived by being smarter than everything trying to kill us, Jake continued. We made fire to keep predators away. We made weapons to hunt animals bigger than ourselves. We made clothing to survive in climates that should have killed us. And most importantly, we learned to work together. But how did you become so capable in combat? Zixara asked. Your techniques. Your precision. The way you move. That requires more than just survival instinct. Jake's expression grew somber. Humans are very good at two things: cooperating with each other and fighting each other. For most of our history, we did both. Tribes fought tribes, nations fought nations. We developed thousands of ways to hurt each other, to gain advantages in combat, to win battles. And this continued until you achieved space travel? Beyond that, Ambassador Carter interjected. Even after we reached our moon, even after we had satellites and computers and nuclear weapons, humans still fought wars. We came very close to destroying ourselves several times. What changed? Zixara asked. We finally started learning the lessons that every conflict tried to teach us, Lisa said. That cooperation is better than competition. That peace is stronger than war. That survival of your group is not about defeating other groups. It's about working with them. She walked over to a window showing the distant view of space. When we discovered we were not alone in the universe, it gave us perspective. All those things we fought over on Earth. Territory and resources and ideology. They seemed smaller when we realized how big the galaxy was. How many other species were out there? Zixara absorbed this information, her mind working through the implications. So humans are warriors who chose to stop fighting. Not exactly, Jake said. We are warriors who learn to fight only when necessary. The capacity for violence is still there. The training, the instinct, the ability. But we control it now. We choose when to use it and when to find another way. That is what you were trying to show me in the arena, Zixara said with sudden understanding. Not that you could defeat me, but that you could choose not to. Exactly. High Commander Thralox entered the medical bay, his massive frame filling the doorway. Commander Zixara, your presence is requested at the council session. They wish to hear your testimony about the trial. Zixara straightened, ignoring the pain in her body. I will speak to them. But first, I need to know something. She looked at High Commander Thralox. Did you know, when you assigned me to test the human, did you know what they were capable of? Thralox's 4 eyes studied her carefully. I read the preliminary reports about Earth. Most council members only looked at their technology and social development. But I read the biological surveys. I saw the atmospheric composition, the gravity measurements, the descriptions of their predators and diseases. I suspected the humans were underestimated. You could have warned me, Zixara said. Would you have believed me? Thralox asked. Would anyone have believed me if I said that these small, seemingly weak beings were actually dangerous? No. You needed to learn through experience. The whole galaxy needed to see it. He turned to Ambassador Carter. I apologize for the deception, but it was necessary. If we had simply granted Earth membership based on my suspicions, there would have been resistance and doubt. Now, after what everyone witnessed, no one can deny human capability. But now they fear us instead of dismissing us, Lisa said. I'm not sure that's better. Fear and respect often start in the same place, Thralox replied. What matters is what you do with them next. Come. The council is waiting. They walked together through the corridors of the great arena complex, heading toward the council chambers. Other aliens stepped aside as they passed, staring at Jake with new eyes. The dismissive looks were gone, replaced by wary assessment. The council chambers were circular, with seating arranged in tiers so every species delegation could see each other. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the space, representing cultures and biologies that ranged from humanoid to incomprehensible. Ambassador Carter took her place in the human delegation section. Jake stood behind her, along with Ryan Price and the rest of her security team. Zixara walked to the center of the chamber, where witnesses gave testimony. High Commander Thralox called for order. Commander Zixara of the Kratheon Empire will now speak about the combat trial. Zixara stood tall, her bearing that of a warrior despite her injuries. I have served the Kratheon Empire for 20 years. I have fought in the arena for 15 years without defeat. I have tested champions from 30 species seeking council membership. I believed I understood strength, understood combat, understood what it meant to be a warrior. She paused, looking directly at the assembled delegates. I was wrong. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The human I fought today defeated me easily, Zixara continued. But that is not what shocked me. What shocked me was how he defeated me. Not with overwhelming power, though he had the strength. Not with superior speed, though he was fast enough. He defeated me with precision, technique, and most importantly, restraint. A council member from the insectoid Chithra species spoke up. Restraint is not a virtue in combat. The trial tests strength, not philosophy. With respect, counselor, you are wrong, Zixara said firmly. The human showed me that true strength is not just the capacity for violence. It is the wisdom to choose when violence is necessary. Any creature can destroy. Only a few can choose not to destroy when they have the power to do so. She gestured toward the human delegation. Jake Morgan could have broken my bones, torn my muscles, caused permanent damage. He had multiple opportunities. He chose mercy instead, not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough to control his power. Another council member stood. This one from a species that resembled living crystal. You speak of one human. How do we know the rest of their species shares these qualities? Ambassador Carter rose to respond. If I may address the council, I can provide context about human culture and development. Thralox nodded permission. Lisa Carter's voice was clear and confident. Humanity's history is violent. We will not hide that fact. For thousands of years, we fought wars over territory, resources, beliefs. We caused suffering on a scale that would horrify many species represented here. She let that truth sit for a moment. But we learned. We evolved. Not just biologically, but culturally. We developed philosophies of peace, systems of justice, principles of cooperation. We made mistakes, terrible ones, but we learned from them. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Our world tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate extremes, and when we finally conquered those threats, we nearly killed ourselves with our own weapons. That experience taught us something vital. The greatest threat to humanity was not our environment. It was ourselves. So we changed. We built international organizations. We established laws against war crimes. We created the United Nations to resolve conflicts peacefully. We are far from perfect, but we are trying, and that effort, that commitment to be better than our violent past, that is what defines modern humanity. An elderly council member from the Zorvan Collective spoke, his voice wheezing through multiple vocal chambers. Beautiful words, Ambassador, but how can we trust that humans will not revert to violence once they have access to the galaxy? Your capacity for combat is clear. Your intentions remain uncertain. Zixara stepped forward before Lisa could respond. I can answer that. Counselor, I saw the human's intentions in the way he fought. He could have humiliated me, but he treated me with respect. He could have showcased his superiority, but he took time to explain his people's history and philosophy. He fought not to prove dominance, but to prove understanding. She looked around the chamber. If humans wanted to conquer or destroy, they would not have come seeking council membership. They would have come with weapons and demands. Instead, they came with diplomacy and patience. They endured our mockery, our dismissal, our prejudice. And when forced to demonstrate their capability, they did so with restraint. Ryan Price leaned close to Jake and whispered, "She's making us sound better than we are." "She's not wrong, though," Jake whispered back. "We could have come out here with a show of force. We chose diplomacy instead." The council debated for another hour. Arguments flew back and forth about the risks and benefits of human membership. Some delegates worried about human military capabilities. Others saw potential in human technology and adaptability. A few species expressed interest in cultural exchange programs. Finally, High Commander Thralox called for a vote. All in favor of granting Earth provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with standard terms and conditions. The votes were cast electronically, displayed on a massive screen. The numbers climbed slowly. Green for approval, red for denial, yellow for abstention. When the counting finished, the result was clear. 63% approval. Earth had passed the threshold for membership. The human delegation erupted in quiet celebration, mindful of council protocol. Ambassador Carter smiled, but her expression remained professional. Thralox announced the terms. Earth is granted provisional membership for a period of 10 galactic standard years. During this time, humanity will participate fully in council activities, with representatives serving on committees and working groups. Human military personnel will be evaluated for potential service as peacekeepers in conflict zones. Human cultural and scientific exchanges will be encouraged. He looked directly at Lisa Carter. "Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador. Use this opportunity wisely." After the session ended, Zixara found Jake outside the council chambers. "I have a request," she said formally. "What kind of request?" "I wish to visit Earth. To see your world. To understand how it shaped your people. And I wish to learn more about human combat techniques. If you will teach me." Jake smiled. "I think that can be arranged. Fair warning, though. Earth might be more intense than you're expecting." "I fought you for hours in extreme conditions," Zixara said. "How bad can your planet be?" "You'd be surprised," Ryan Price interjected. "Earth has these things called mosquitoes. Tiny flying insects that drink blood." Zixara's expression shifted to confusion. "Your world has blood-drinking parasites and you still consider it home?" "We have worse than that," Jake said cheerfully. "But you'll see, Earth grows on you once you understand it." Several months later, Zixara stood on a beach in Hawaii, Earth's sun warming her crimson skin. Waves rolled in from the Pacific Ocean, and palm trees swayed in the breeze. She had spent weeks on Earth, visiting cities and wilderness areas, meeting humans from different cultures, learning about their history and development. She had also trained with human martial artists, learning techniques from various fighting styles: judo, boxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and others. Each system taught her something new about leverage, timing, and control. Jake stood next to her, watching the ocean. "So what do you think of Earth?" "It is beautiful," Zixara admitted. "And terrifying. I have never been to a world with so many things that can kill you. Predators in the oceans, predators on land, poisonous plants, venomous creatures, diseases, extreme weather. How did your species survive here long enough to build civilization?" "Stubbornness mostly," Jake said with a grin. "And cooperation. And a lot of really bad decisions that taught us what not to do." Zixara had also learned about human recreation. She discovered that humans deliberately sought out dangerous activities for entertainment. Surfing in shark-infested waters, climbing mountains where the air was too thin to breathe, jumping out of aircraft with only fabric to slow their fall. "Your species is insane," she said. "Not for the first time." "Maybe," Jake agreed. "But it's a useful kind of insane." Ambassador Carter had arranged for Zixara to serve as a liaison between the Krathion Empire and Earth. It was an official position that allowed her to continue learning about humanity, while also teaching humans about galactic culture and politics. She had come to Earth as a defeated warrior seeking to understand her conqueror. She was leaving as someone who understood that victory and defeat were less important than growth and wisdom. As she watched the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, painting the sky in colors she had never seen on her own world, Zixara reflected on everything that had changed. She had learned that strength without wisdom was just violence, that power without restraint was just destruction, and that the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were not those with the greatest capacity for violence, but those who had that capacity and chose to use it only when necessary. Humans were dangerous, yes. But they were dangerous in the way a sheathed sword was dangerous. The potential for harm was always there, but it remained controlled, waiting for the moment when it was truly needed. That moment in the arena, when she had seen Jake unleash his true power, Zixara had frozen. Not from fear, but from recognition. She had seen in that instant what humans truly were. Survivors who had evolved on a death world and emerged with both the strength to destroy and the wisdom to build instead. The galaxy was still adjusting to humanity's presence. Some species remained wary. Others were eager to establish relationships. But everyone now understood that humans were not to be underestimated, and Zixara, the warrior who had never lost, had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes, the greatest victory is choosing not to fight.